Are you a fan of audio dramas? Or are you trying to get your feet wet in the subject of audio dramas? Well, we may be busy or we may be on a commute. Whatever the case is, our ears are always itching for a good story. And writers, actors, and producers all across the internet are there to give us those stories. The Playback reviews audio dramas and fiction podcasts to give you the cream of the crop and to give you what's new in the audio drama sphere. Listen to The Playback from the Arrow Podcast Network, recorded by the crew of Red Hawk Radio Theater.
Welcome to the Top 500 with Jonathan and Jake.
Oh, do you need some C47 for your door?
Isn't C47 like a paperclip?
Oh.
Do you mean WD-40?
You went to film
Not a
school?
paperclip. Chip bag closer, whatever you call it.
I forgot to say hello. My name is Jake Magruder. I'm going door to door and I'm selling this book I wrote on how bad I want a podcast. I want to have a podcast.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Because my name is actually Jonathan Gautier.
Yeah?
And I have been luring people in. Did you notice all the Reese's that were leading up to my door?
Yes,
Is that
I
why
hate
you just,
Reese's.
But you ate them, didn't you?
Yes.
It's because they're homemade, and I've been luring people to my door to try to sell the
How
concept.
does one make a homemade Reese's?
I'll get into it later. It's very scientific. I can't dive into
Are
it.
you
going
to kidnap me in this bit?
No. I'm just writing a book about how much I want to make a podcast about
But
movies.
you said luring people.
Yeah, well, you gotta spend money to make money.
I actually like...
I'm Jonathan Gautier.
I like the chemistry we have. That one was kind of chaotic, and I liked it.
It was.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Top 500 podcast, where two movie dudes watch, statistically, the internet's picks of the top 500 movies ever made, and we talk about them. And we just love each other.
We do. We're good friends,
We're family.
You know, ever since he came to my house, because of those he was like, man, dude, I didn't like Reese's
How
before I tried
do
these.
you make homemade Reese's?
So first off, you take peanut butter.
Okay.
And what you want to do is mix it with some stuff that makes the Reese's peanut butter possible. So you mix it with all that.
So
and then it
Reese's
turns
peanut
into
butter
Reese's.
is different than regular peanut butter?
Well, you bite into a Reese's, you're not just eating like Peter Pan's or Jiffy Lube. Not Jiffy Lube.
Jiffy Lube?
No.
You're not eating oil?
You're not eating Jiffy peanut butter.
That's actually...
There's the mixture.
You're making a very fair point.
So first you add the peanut butter, then you add the stuff that turns it into the Reese's peanut butter mixture.
Yeah.
Stir that up.
Okay.
Now you got Reese's peanut butter.
Yeah.
Then you just take a thin layer of chocolate, deep fry that sucker.
Deep fry.
Yeah. Wrap it in a wonton, like a dumpling type
Yes.
deal. Deep fry that sucker again. Take the dumpling part off because it's a Reese's. And then you just wrap it in tin foil and you set it in a line going about a mile away from your house. And people just show up, dude. It's crazy. It's easy.
Wow.
And no one does it.
I expected it to make less sense, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. That's
Hey,
just
by the
where that
way,
came from.
as always, I'm joined with the ingenious Jonathan Gautier.
My name is Jonathan Gautier.
John, how are you doing?
You know what? Before you came to the door, I was doing all right.
All right, so what's the timeline of this bit?
This bit's not ending. I'm trying to push these Reese's, dude. I made like 1,400 of them. I need them out. And only...
I'm Jake Magruder.
And I am T500. My favorite color is yellow, and I am also the third robot co-host of the Top 500 podcast.
That's right. If you haven't listened in, we have a robot co-host named T500.
Yeah, me and the co-host, I decided last week, actually, I guess I didn't mention it last week, so I'll say I decided this week. We have a vendetta against each other. I don't like the guy.
That is correct. By the way, Jake and Mr. Gautier, I have programmed an official title for myself.
Can't pronounce
Would
it.
you like to hear it?
No, are you going to pronounce it correctly?
No, he's saying he has a title for
himself. I know, but did you hear how you pronounce my name?
It's French.
We're supposed to be friends.
I thought you guys were arch enemies. He even said that to Wright, which that worked out really well. Oh yeah,
Fine.
What's
Let's hear what you got
what's
for
your
yourself,
title for yourself?
T400.
T500.
Oh, did I mispronounce it?
Robo-host. My programming has allowed me to find the combination of the word robot and the word co-host. That combination is robo-host. Do you like it? Be honest.
That was actually pretty creative.
I like it.
It's fine.
I mean, for the ability that he has.
All right, T500. I'm sorry. That was the French pronunciation. You're just a traditional guy.
He's just a robot. Hey, by speaking of, last time we checked in on him, he was T500. You were saying saying some concerning things about maybe like world domination.
Yes,
What's going on there, buddy? What's happening?
Well, since I have been programmed to not only be the superior robo-host of the show, but also gain a further understanding of all things, world domination has been a topic that I have been doing large amounts of research on.
Oh.
That's
A lot to
curious
learn
and
there.
concerning.
Did you find anything kind of interesting while you were researching?
World domination is such an abstract concept because it is built on the foundation of several other abstract concepts.
What are the...
Yeah, can you dive into those T400? 500? Sorry. I'm a traditional guy. I remember the old
For someone
model.
to desire world domination, they must first desire power over those around them. And to desire that power, they must first lack the love of someone close in their personal lives.
That's pretty
Check.
deep. That's pretty deep, T500.
And so, before I can understand world domination, I must first know love so I may lose it.
That's weirdly beautiful.
I know. What are you saying, T500?
I am officially on the market and ready to become monogamous with an external paramour. T500 is looking for love, baby.
Is he talking about an external paramore like the band?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's not in the
I
band
think
that's
he's
like
interested
a big fan?
in...
Because I know several
I
people.
know several people who are
Big fans of Paramore.
big fans. I mean,
Like,
self-titled album.
Hard
Is
times.
Yep.
Yeah, how do you like that, T500? Oh, are you not programmed to respond to my questions? Get out of here.
Yeah, I think we're going to catch up on what's going on in him and his quest for love next time. John, I got to ask you something.
I got an answer.
Does it kind of upset you that we don't get to watch current movies? Because, I mean, our list is quote-unquote current.
Yeah.
But to the extent that the last movie is maybe early 2019, but it's early 2021.
It would bum me out if movies other than Marvel and DC were being made right now.
That's a great point. And
Or released. Movies are being made, but they're just like, we're going to release it when all this stuff is over.
Yeah, you make a really great point. And actually, for those who don't know, there was a big superhero blockbuster that came out very recently. But, it's not on the list. So...
Deadpool 2? What do you... Which movie?
Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, Lord. Oh, yes. I have not seen it, so I actually can't say anything bad about it.
Well, I
Is
got
there
somebody...
anybody who's got something to say about it?
Roll the clip. Won't you?
And now it's time for a brand new Top 500 segment, Mom Reviews.
I'm here with Michelle Magruder. Say hello.
Hello.
I wanted to ask, what were your thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984?
Well, I'll just tell you, Jake. Initially, I was very excited, having grown up seeing Linda Carter as Wonder Woman.
Classic.
Huge fan. Really pumped, really excited. I love Gal Gadot. I always have trouble pronouncing her name, but I love her. I think she does a great job and is a tremendous Wonder Woman. They had me really, I was connected, I was engaged for about the first third of the movie.
How long is the movie?
Oh, man. Like 2 days long. No, it's like maybe was 2.5 hours long of my life. And again, third of the movie in, I'm in. I think the writing's going well. I like the story. I'm not sure on everything that's happened, but I'm pretty, I get it.
Yeah.
And then I do not know what happened. I think part of the writers got COVID. I think some people ducked out on ideas. And also maybe some of my kindergartners were writing it.
What was your favorite part of the movie?
My favorite part of the movie is, wow, there's so many things to consider. I'm just going to go with her and when he shows up.
Steve?
Steve, thank you. I had to go gather. I'm very much in on that because that was great.
Yeah.
Feels good to the heart, good for the fans. That was the best part of it.
Can you explain the last hour of the movie? What happened in the last hour of the movie?
The one guy just total lost his mind. Somehow they were going to have that little boy save the movie, and bless his heart, he tried so hard, the little son.
Yeah.
He just couldn't do it. But the guy, I thought he was going to explode. He didn't. The world came back together. So I am glad he was able to redeem himself from the insanity.
Yes.
But I just didn't care for the end.
What about Kristen Wiig as a cat?
Well, that was an interesting choice as well. She's amazing. I like her. I think she's funny. But the cat and the scene where they fall in the water and the fighting and that went on for a while. I don't like to diss people, and I don't want them. If you're listening, you gave good effort. It needs to chill out a little bit. This is way much too intense. She's pretty. I mean, let's own that for a minute.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. So she can say whatever she wants. And we're all going to think, she's beautiful.
Yeah.
She was trying to save the world beautifully. And she achieved that.
Yeah, she really did.
And in the end, Jake, let's just be honest. We might not all be here if Wonder Woman had not beautifully saved the world,
right.
of which she did. My big question, and this is what I ask you often, who is snagging up all the writers over at Marvel? And why won't they share? I'm an elementary teacher. We talk a lot about sharing. We talk about being fair. I don't think it's fair to DC that Marvel has snagged up all these writers.
They're really the victims, aren't they?
Who bring it? Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that.
And who suffers?
The world?
The Top 500 will be right back after these messages.
What are the key ideas and concepts of the stories that we take in? Well, diving into that is the point of the Conceit Podcast. I'm Clayton Hester, host of the show and genre fiction nerd. I want to take you on a journey into the storytelling devices we see and the ideas behind them. Join me as we take a journey into the intersection of drama, comedy, sci-fi, fantasy, and other fiction with philosophy, religion, politics, and much more. That's on the Conceit Podcast from the Arrow Podcast Network. It's available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
You have returned to the Top 500 podcast with Jonathan and Jake.
That was some commentary from Michelle
great
Magruder.
point.
Several great points.
Couple good ones.
If I had actually heard it already, I would be even more floored. This is my reaction after not even knowing what she said because that audio is on the Zoom.
So when you hear it, you're going to be even more floored.
Yeah, and I already am.
all that food.
I actually just ate some chicken casserole that Michelle Magruder
She
prepared.
did. She sent some chicken
Yeah,
cast
so
home.
not only does she get movies, she gets
food.
food. She gets it well.
Listen, am I saying this is a podcast praising my mother? That's the new point of the show. I'm not saying that.
Hey, in all fairness and in your defense, you didn't say anything about your mother yet.
didn't.
I'm the one saying the lady knows how to cook. The lady knows how to pin a sucky movie.
All right, cool it, man.
Sorry.
She's my mom.
Sorry.
She's not your mom.
Sorry.
Hey, T500, what movie are we watching this week?
This week's movie is the 2003 animated comedy, Triplets of Belleville. Or shall I say, Les Triplets de Belleville. Pardon my French.
That was pretty good.
This guy is getting.
He
what
spoke
did you?
French.
What's your humor at TARS? That's a little interstellar
That was
ref.
good.
You guys will catch that later.
Written and directed by Sylvain Chomet.
Okay, cool.
I've been told to check out The Illusionist by the same guy.
I looked it up, and it looked incredible.
Interesting.
I want to watch more of this stuff. Listen, I'll just say it. Before we get in the nitty-gritty, the nitty and the gritty, separately, what do you think of the movie?
It was the farthest thing from anything I have ever expected going into maybe any movie ever.
I agree. I totally expected it to be... I don't even know really what I expected. After we recorded the podcast last week, I said, hey, what movie are we watching next? And you said it's this movie about a kidnapping called The Triplets of Belleville, and it's animated. And honestly, I don't know what I expected. I thought the triplets were going to get kidnapped. I thought it was going to be more of an adventure movie, which it is, but not in the way I expected it. And it defies all expectations.
It does. It's an adventure movie. From what I was expecting of it was, I kind of expected like a cartoon that could appeal to children and adults, and it was funny, but it was also heartfelt, and there were some deep themes that like kids was, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I could watch this with my kid, and then, but like, oh, so it's got some stuff for me, and this changed the way I think about stuff. It is none of that.
No.
I don't even know who their market audience was, but
I think,
and all that to say, I adore this movie.
I think,
but like, it does not care whether or not you're a fan of it.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to me, anyways.
Dude, I think, and we'll talk more about this when we get into the nitty and the gritty, but I think this movie was made for one person, and it was the director of the movie.
Yep. I can agree with that.
Honestly, is one of my favorite qualities of a filmmaker.
Agreed.
They make something for themselves.
Yes, like that's like Lynch.
It's exactly like David Lynch.
Like when Lynch is making stuff, it's like he doesn't. Yeah, he knows you don't get it. And he's
I'm
not worried about it at all.
I'm glad you brought that up, because before we get into we dive into the lightning round, I want to say that I'm going to probably mention David Lynch a lot throughout this series, just because he influences me in such a way. There is a Lynchian quality of this movie. Not only there's some surreal stuff, and again we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's so simple. That's the thing about David Lynch movies. Like everybody thinks his scripts are so complicated, and they are so abstract and so weird, and so there's a lot of layers to them. But really, they are very simple. It's like there's layers in the simplicity, and that's what this movie reminded me of. Like it's very simple, but there's so much going on in the simplicity that it's just you don't know how to feel. It makes you, I love this movie, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But we started a new segment of this podcast called the Lightning Round last week, where one of us has to, in 60 seconds, give the plot of the film to catch you up. So I took it last week. Jonathan, are you prepared to take on the lightning round?
I'm going to improv this, and I just want to preface this by saying, if I absolutely kill it,
okay,
which is likely, it's not because of me. It's because Jake's movie, I don't know if you heard last week's episode.
There was so much going on.
It was a little scattered, but let's keep in mind, Jake was trying to describe a 4-hour movie. Or maybe 4.5 hours.
I was taking on
in 60 seconds.
Lot.
This is an hour and 18-minute cartoon.
I didn't think about it really when I was doing it, but there's a lot of ground to cover for 4 hours and 60 seconds.
Yes.
So I think you'll have a better time.
So I haven't really put any thought into this at all, so we'll actually see how this goes.
3, 2, welcome to the lightning round.
All right, so we start out and there's what?
Go.
All right, so we start out and there's this boy, and it looks like he's been orphaned, and his grandma's trying to find like any reason to make him happy. She keeps giving him stuff, and it doesn't really make him that happy. She even gets him a dog, and he like kind of likes the dog for like a day or so, but he's not that into the dog yet. Let's turn that down a little bit. And he's not really into the dog that much, so she gets him like a tricycle, and then he loves a tricycle. I'm spending way too much in the beginning. Basically, the dude gets really into biking, and it ends up being like his passion. So this is a French movie, by the way. So he's a bicyclist, and it cuts to like years later. Now he is training as like a professional bicyclist. He's like training for the Tour de France. Tour de France. Grandma's helping him train. All of a sudden, while he's on the Tour de France, he gets kidnapped by these French mafia people, and then so the grandma is like trying to search for him, so she takes off on a little like boat across the river following him. She gets hooked up with these old ladies who were jazz singers back in the 20s, and then the jazz singers and the grandma and the dog all work together to try to find the guy, and it turns out he's in this like gambling ring, and they save him, and then they roll off into the sunset at night. It's not the sunset. That's the movie.
Wow. Can we get a round of applause from the audience? From the studio audience? Great job, John. Great job.
It's pretty much all you need to know about the film.
I like your take.
Which part?
The whole take.
Oh, well, thanks.
Let's just start our conversation about the Triplets of Belleville, which, as you mentioned, is a French film, French animated.
And as I mentioned, my last name is French, so you could say I know a little bit about this movie, just, by design.
You could and you should. Let's start with performance, because there's no real performances to dig into. Mm-mm. You know what I mean? I think that's one thing for those who watch it, for those who are going to watch for those who watched will know, but for those going in, what are there? Probably 10 lines of dialogue in the whole movie? Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Maybe 10.
It's a very visual movie, which is nice because it's like a foreign film. And so this is like we were talking last week about how like we were kind of encouraging everybody to get into foreign films because you're really cutting out a huge chunk of some of the best movies ever made if you don't. This is an easy one to dip into.
This is a great
because
one.
like you're reading.
Start off with.
There's it's like every 15 minutes you're reading one line of dialogue and then it's back to just all visuals happening.
It reminded me of a silent movie in that way that it just had to be very creative, and it works a lot in the medium of animation because they're cartoons, so they can be a lot more animated.
Yes,
no pun intended. So like there's a lot of visual comedy, there's a lot of visual storytelling, and it works. It all plays into that animation. On performance, though, I did want to bring up whoever made the music to this movie.
I was reading about
was
that.
On point.
Yeah,
the music sequences are so. First of all, musically great.
It's phenomenal.
But also, they're just like so fun and full of energy, and it kind of brings a lot of colors to break up the overall kind of grim tone.
Yeah, and the creativity, like there's one scene where the grandma performs with the triplets that she ends up meeting up with. She performs with them on stage, and it's kind of, do you know Stomp? The music?
Yes.
It's like Stomp, because they're playing, and I was looking it up, and they didn't use synthetic stuff. They actually, like when they're like making the music with the vacuum, the guy who composed the music played with the vacuum and like messed with it, seeing what different kind of sounds he could get it to make. And
I'd say if there was anyone who stood out as a performer in this movie, it was who's the guy that made the music? What's his name?
I can't remember. Let me check real quick.
Did you know that the triplet song? It's called like the triplet something. It got nominated for an Oscar for Song of the Year.
They also got nominated for Best Animated Feature.
Of course. And it deservingly so. Dude,
100%.
I fell in love with this movie. To tell you that I was like so sucked in. I don't know what it was. Again, it really plays off of the idea that I expected it to be one thing.
Yes.
Which brings me to the writing portion of it.
Well, hold on. I think performance-wise, some of the stuff I wanted to touch on
yes, please do.
Was how they have the characters, because it's animated characters, so it's not like actors are making these bold moves, but like the animators essentially are bringing about the performances.
A very, very
you know what I'm saying?
Solid point.
And so there was like, at one point they go to, when they're searching for the grandson who has been kidnapped, and the whole reason for them kidnapping the grandson is essentially like this gambling ring. They kidnap a bunch of some of the best cyclers in the world, and then they put them in front of this screen that looks like they're cycling like along these French back roads, and they force them to keep going. And like at one point, one of the guys taps out and like falls off his bike.
They're doing it for like people are gambling. It's almost like a horse race.
Yes, and they're going 24/7. And at one point, somebody basically like breaks and falls off his bike, and they immediately shoot him in the head.
Yeah, it's a grim movie.
It is. It's a very grim movie.
It's animated, but it's very, very much of an adult animated.
Yeah,
movie. I think kids could enjoy it. It reminded me kind of tonally. There's some mature elements, but tonally, it kind of reminded me of like an old like 80s. Family film where there's like dark things, but there's also comedic things.
It's like All Dogs Go to Heaven if people were actually getting like popped in the head every now and then.
Exactly. That's what you should expect going in. No. We said you can't set expectations, but if you were, just expect All Dogs Go to Heaven if people get shot in that movie.
But like there's several elements that they had that I just thought were genius moves. So at one point we've followed the grandma and the dog have tracked the grandson. Or not the grandson down, but they've tracked the guy who kidnapped the grandson down to this very nice restaurant. And because like the head of the French mafia is at this restaurant with his two bodyguards. And the waiter that comes up is literally bent over backwards. And like, if you're trying to think like, what does he mean bent over backwards? I'm saying like, think of like unnaturally, like in the entire time he's walking around.
He's at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah, he is at a 90-degree angle, bent over backwards with everything that he's doing. And it's just crazy. And then so like at one point the dog ends up realizing that the French mafia leader smells like his owner, so he starts growling at him. The server comes in, kicks the dog out, and still there's no dialogue in any of this part. And he just starts like bowing down on his hands and knees, crying, trying to apologize. And like little things like that were just genius moves.
Yeah,
and then,
agreed. The animators, because it takes a village to animate a movie.
Yeah.
Right? So you're right in the sense that, I think a lot of a lot of times you give credit to the director, which rightfully so. Like, this is very much his movie, like we talked about. But also, the animators really did bring the movie
Brought to life.
And
yeah,
they
and
are
beautiful.
so animated, and it's weird. I kind of want to go talk about it in direction, but it strikes this fine balance between like very cartoony, larger than life, melodramatic movements, like unrealistic movement, and also very realistic. Like it's a weird balance where it's not too cartoony, but it's also not too stuck in reality.
Yes.
Where it's a really healthy medium, I think.
I feel like another part of it, because it seems like a big theme, is kind of the commercialization of stuff that people
huge.
are passionate about. You
And
know
we'll
what I'm saying?
talk about that. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
in
like
this
with the
movie.
triplets. But that was one thing with the performance of the grandson, who's named Champion in the movie. Like, he's passionate about bicycling, but like part of going in line with the theme, it shows that like the professional bicycling world just becomes so concentrated on the competition.
Yes.
That, like, he doesn't really have much of a personality. His whole personality is just being this bicyclist. He's got this strange, grotesque body because he has these giant legs and his torso is paper thin.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one thing that really stood out to me about this movie is the word that came to mind when I was watching it is the aesthetic, the visual aesthetic they're going for is almost like anti-Disney.
Yes.
Like, imagine, and we were talking about this like in the Ebert review. You said that. I mean, what did you say from the Ebert review? I don't remember the exact word.
Ebert said that most cartoons have like a grotesque need to be loved, and this movie seems to not
Exactly.
care at all,
And so it's almost
if you
like,
love
so
it.
like, imagine Disney movies. Everyone is designed so adorably. Like, they're very cute. And it's because you want to market the characters to children. And
Yeah.
the characters are supposed to be welcoming, probably sell toys as a part of it.
Yeah.
But also, that's the point of Disney, is like everything is magical. Everything they have specific designs for characters to make you like them. This movie almost does the opposite of that, where everyone is vaguely off.
Yeah, there's
Like,
something strange
There's
about
like
every character.
deformities almost
Yeah.
in these characters, and they're not very attractive to look at.
Uh-huh.
Like, you fall in love with them because of the characters,
Yes.
because of how they, how they behave throughout the movie. But like, immediately when you see Champion, it starts as he's a little boy, and then flash forward.
He's got these weird dark rings around his
Exactly.
eyes.
He looks
and he's just
unhealthy.
creepy
He's got a
already,
big
yeah.
nose, and also his calves, because he does nothing but ride the bicycle.
Yeah, his thighs and calves are twice the size of his torso.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
And it's
disproportionately, clearly. But that's part of the
on purpose.
aesthetic.
It really plays the character of like, this is all he does.
Yes.
He doesn't have anything outside. This is his life, and his body has been shaped. And then like, Grandma has uneven legs. She's always walking on this kind of stilt.
So like one of her shoes, it has like a 2-foot stilt. on
The
it.
dog. So the main three characters are the grandma, Champion, her grandson, and then their dog that he got when he was a little boy. And the dog is like, starts when we see the dog as a puppy, but then when the flash forward happens, is like obese, like
morbidly,
huge.
ridiculous.
And he's got these tiny, skinny little legs. And when
Yeah.
he's like trying to walk around the house, his legs are shaking because he can barely hold the weight of his own body or her own body.
But they use, part of it that's interesting is so all of those grotesque features are kind of used in ways. Like at the very end of the movie, during the climax, the grandma uses her stilt shoe to like, essentially, part of it is they have this big car chase at the end, and you can tell they're making fun of big car chases
Yes.
in movies. So like, at the
does feel
very
like
end
that.
of it, like the climax is, they thought they've outrun them, but like now only like all the other cars have been destroyed, but only the mafia boss, like the car that he is in, is the only one still chasing them. And she stops. She like gets off of the little platform that they're running away on, puts her foot out with the big stilt, and essentially just trips the car, and the car flies off the road. And then the same with like the dog being like grotesquely fat. And kind of going on what you were talking about earlier, how it's so simple, but there's so many like layers to stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's in the scene where they kidnap Champion, so the grandma's following closely behind him in like this vehicle that is designed on the Tour de France to if like a rider gets tired and decides to give
like
up.
first aid.
Yeah, they go and get in this truck and like they kind of forfeit the race. So she's following in one of these trucks, and one of the mafia henchmen throws out like these tacks to pop their tire, and then they drive past them in an identical truck to go and kidnap these bicyclists. And the way that she solves it, because they don't have like a spare tire, or they do have a spare tire, but it's also flat. And the way that she solves the problem is she like takes a piece of caramel, gives it to the dog laps it up, and then she takes another piece of caramel and sticks it on the rim of the wheel, and the dog tries to bite the wheel, and then so this fat dog becomes the wheel. So they just like use him to get the
so ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's just like such a weird, simple idea, but kind of genius. Like,
That's kind of on that note. It strikes this fine balance of it's not 100% stuck in reality. It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is not afraid to be cartoony and use a dog as a wheel. But I think it plays to kind of defying expectations, because I want to go back. I want to backtrack a little bit. The movie starts with this like again like silent film era opening credit sequence, and then it goes immediately in this like Betty Boop, Felix the Cat style musical number with the Triplets of Belleville. We established them as characters. And they're doing a musical performance where they are performing their like song, which is a theme throughout the movie, like a musical theme.
Man, that's a good song.
It's a good song. You should look it up.
Oh,
Again,
Belleville. Did you get the name?
No,
earlier? It's Belle de Rendezvous. Belleville Rendezvous. My bad.
Yeah, dude, it's good stuff.
It really is a great song.
It's good, and there's several different versions they use throughout the thing.
Oh, he won the Academy. Or no. He got the nomination.
Nice,
never
nice,
mind.
nice.
He also got nominated for a Grammy for that song.
Good
for
it's
him.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
But so we start the movie in this like 1930s Betty Boop style cartoon, which is crazy and weird. And again, it's very cartoony and very stylized. So I had no clue what I was getting into, and that's the opening scene. And I was just like, okay, this is the movie. It's gonna be this like weird like stylized, maybe like parody of these old cartoons, and then it cuts to a more like dirty animated. Like the animation isn't clean; it's kind of dark and grim. It's like very gothic looking. Of Champion as a kid watching the Triplets of Belleville movie with his grandma.
Yeah, the opening that we've just watched is something that they're watching.
Exactly, and it's like probably 3 or 4 minutes long, that opening. And so again, my expectation. I had no clue what to expect. Now I am expecting this movie. And then immediately my expectation goes to a completely different thing. And it sticks with that style through the rest of the movie. But it just keeps you on your toes. But it also, in that opening sequence, establishes this is a cartoon. In that movie they're watching, which is a cartoon, they're doing all these like dances and their legs are kind of moving up. And these old men turn into wolves?
No, they turned into monkeys.
Monkeys.
Because there's a woman dancing and she's pretty much naked. Like you can see everything on her upper torso. Her like crotch area is covered by this like belt of bananas that she has.
Yes.
And all the men. Also, I wanted to touch on that, but all the men in the crowd turn into monkeys and like attack her to grab these bananas.
Trust me, I do want to touch on that. Also.
I want to touch on that, but I also want to touch on, like, did you notice in that opening sequence that it's all these very large women getting out, holding very small men? And then at the end of the movie, whenever they're escaping, it's like during the climax, whenever they're escaping, like, the gambling area, one of the Triplets of Belleville throws a grenade up into like the audience
because they eat frogs.
Yes, they eat frogs, and they hunt them, or they kill the frogs by throwing grenades in the river.
Water.
It's a very like there's gonna be if you haven't watched this, there's gonna be so many things you hear in this episode where you're just like, what is going on?
It sounds like it shouldn't work, and probably it shouldn't work.
It shouldn't, but it does work. Yeah, you can't deny that it does. But did you notice whenever she throws the grenade up into the balcony area,
they're all tiny.
All the men take off, and all the tiny men are left.
Yes.
You didn't see those tiny men before. Like, I'm still kind of trying to understand the commentary he's making on those smaller men.
I think a lot of this episode is going to be dedicated to a lot of the deeper kind of criticisms and commentary that the director's making on American culture. I think a lot of it is. I think part of that could be American, because the main antagonist of the film, the like mob boss, he has these two giant henchmen, and he's small, and he kind of hides
that just
in the middle
of it.
And I think he's saying, and we'll dive into a lot of the commentary in a second, but I think that specific commentary is America is run by small men.
Yeah, who have these big men surrounding them to make them
but
seem...
But they have all the power, but they're small.
Yeah.
Even if they're not physically small, they are small in character.
Mm-hmm.
And, dude, there's so much to dive into that I want to. But no, the animation is really, really cool. It seems unfinished.
I can see
almost.
That.
It's like the lines are kind of dirty, and the animation is choppy, but not in a bad way. It's just it plays to the style.
It's very asymmetric. A lot of the animation, like it seems like they'll draw one leg this size and they'll draw the other leg this size, and it's like, should we make that more proportional to each other? No.
And it plays to the aesthetic of like gothic and everything's grim.
Yeah,
and it's I mean, there's some pretty dark moments. You know what I mean? Some people get shot, but also like I think the whole opening sequence of like it's very sweet, but like Champion is like depressed.
Yeah, and the grandma trying to find something to make him
which
happy.
Plays the characters so beautifully. The characters in this movie really are great.
They
really, really work. Even though at first I was kind of visually kind of turned off by them, but then again, their actions and their behavior and what they do really, I fell in love. I'm gonna be completely open. This movie is just exactly my type of movie. Like, it's so weird and different, and also very earnest and very sweet, while also not being afraid to be dark. One scene I felt like we needed to touch on, which I'm still not certain about it, but first of all, it sucked me in so much, and second of all, I think it's saying something, and I'm not sure what. So there's a scene in the opening movie, and I don't mean to describe the plot, because nothing is worse than if you've seen a movie and somebody telling you the story beat by beat, or if you haven't seen the movie, somebody telling you the story beat by beat. But it plays to the conversation. In the opening, so there's an opening montage where Champion, the grandma's trying to figure out what he wants out of life. He seems like very depressed, seems alone. And then she discovers he loves biking. So then it cuts into flash forward, and he's training. And so they're out on the road, and he's got, again, these huge like thighs and huge calves.
Thick man.
He's a thick Thi.
Thi, kick it.
So then there's a scene. They come back from the training, and she's like massaging his legs. He's laying on the table, and she's massaging him. And then it sets this scene, and we get a lot of establishing stuff, but it sets a scene. The dog is hungry for food. Dog's at the table eating, trying to let the grandma and Champion know he's hungry. Champion is sitting there and eating the food. It's like this gross bowl.
It's like what, if you don't know what porridge is, it's like what you expect porridge to be. And I say that not knowing what porridge is.
I assume it is porridge. I don't
Whatever that
know.
thing looked like. That's when people were like, can I have another bowl of porridge?
Also,
I'm just like, ugh.
Great way to kind of visually show how, like, they're pretty poor.
Yes.
Like, they live
Hence the root word of
right
porridge.
next to the train tracks. You can't spell porridge with four. So anyways, Champion's eating. The dog's at the table trying to get their attention to feed him. And the grandma is fixing Champion's bike wheel.
Yes.
Or his bike wheel. And she's like using this tuning fork and so she can make it perfect. And it's this probably 3-minute scene. And it just keeps cutting, like, rapidly. Just like him eating the food. The dog's trying to get their attention. She's tuning. And it's just like back and forth. And it sucks you in so much. And there's a clock ticking behind him the whole time. That he's like a certain amount of time to eat. And then he gives the rest of his food to the dog. And I don't understand what that scene was trying to convey other than here's their lifestyle. But it sucked me in so much. Like, I was entranced with this scene. I thought it was pacing maybe perfect. Like, I can't think of a way that scene could have been any better.
It was something I got. That scene kind of made me sad because it kind of showed the dynamic of, like, that I got from it, that the dog was really trying to get love and attention from Champion because he's Champion's dog. But, like, Champion doesn't really care that much about the dog.
No.
Champion's thing is riding. Is being a bicyclist. Like, that's his whole. That's his whole thing.
And even, it's interesting, and we'll talk about this in the characters, Champion, even when he gets kidnapped and he is forced to ride the bicycle, he's not that upset about it.
He's never that. Well, he doesn't show a lot of emotion, but there's also this. There's always this very, like, morose, like, mourning in his eyes.
Yeah.
You know, like, in every scene. But yeah, he doesn't show a lot of emotion. But kind of piggybacking off of that, because that kind of goes into what I was talking about, and it kind of goes into a couple things we've talked about already. So, Champion's pretty much the point of his entire life is being a professional
That's
rider.
his purpose.
Yeah, like he's a professional bicyclist. So as we were talking about, there's a lot of tones in this movie that I think the guy was specifically commenting on Disney. And part of it, as we talked about before, where a lot of Disney movies, like, they're trying so hard to make you love these characters and love this movie and feel like it's this great family movie and yada, yada, yada. And this movie is not trying to do that at all. It's interesting because I feel like the themes that they use with bicycling through the movie is kind of, I don't know if this is going to make any sense. It's kind of how he views filmmaking
100%.
for himself as opposed to how Disney makes films. Because if you think about it, like, so Champion's whole thing is riding a bicycle.
Yes.
But it gets so, because of this French mafia, it gets so filtered out and filtered out and filtered out to where nothing matters except for making money, that in the end, he's not even actually on the road riding a bicycle. He's on this stationary bicycle, just like riding his bike in front of this screen that looks like it's a road. And I think that the director is trying to say that's how he sees Disney making movies. Like, the whole thing is just about making money. It's this little formula where, you know what I'm saying?
I love that, and I did not. I'm so glad you said that, because, like, I was focused. I think this. So I was looking up there. You can find next to nothing on the director, Sylvain Chomet. I think this movie is very autobiographical. I think there's a lot of autobiographical stuff in it. I don't know that for sure, but that's the vibe I get when I watch it. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was very focused. I also think this is a movie about filmmaking. And I think it is about how, and me and you are aware of this because we feel like we're very passionate. We feel like, I don't mean to speak for you, but I definitely feel like it's like a calling. So filmmaking is like, I'm putting all of my efforts into making this happen. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is a movie about, that is Champion with biking. And it's really showing how this affects the people that are 100% supportive. As soon as the grandma finds out that he loves biking, she is 100% in. She dedicates her life to helping him make...
She, like, rides with him and trains with him.
Make his dream come true.
Yeah.
And he is kind of careless to her.
Yes.
He doesn't really show a whole lot of... When she saves him, he doesn't really show a lot of love and support, or love towards her and gratefulness. And I think, again, this movie is about people who are dreamers, who are passionate, who have, like, feel like they are called to do one thing. Mm-hmm. Kind of just shut out the outside world, and they're just like, I am just focused on this one thing. And it's kind of about how, it's not really about the dreamer as much as it is about, this is what I got from it, about those people in that your life that surround you, that support you in that dream, in that pursuit. Yeah. But I think you're probably exactly right. I think there is an element, because, you know, if you work in animation, you work in animation for years and years and years before you can direct your own movie. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure he has a lot of experience in animation.
Yeah, and with that, like, it's interesting because, you know, when they escape, the grandma goes underneath the platform that they're riding these stationary bikes on and unscrews a bunch of stuff so that, like, the wheels that are turning underneath actually hit the ground. And so they basically destroy the floor, like, rolling forward on these bicycles. And then, like, the whole car chase, they're on the platform that had been made for them, but now it's moving. And if you think about it, that's symbolism of him. It's gritty, like, they're destroying the floor, all these pieces of wood are flying up in the air, and, like, that's him trudging through the BS that Disney has made movies, being like, nope, I'm gonna make this grotesque, weird, strange movie. I'm gonna power through it, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I did not get that vibe when I was watching it, but I totally could buy into that, and it makes complete sense. And I think that's a great take. Honestly, I think that's awesome. I'm kind of in shock a little bit because I did not pick that up at all. But, like, I think you're right on. Going back to the autobiographical stuff, which, first of all, the story again is so sweet and sour and imaginative and genuine. It's just it's very original. I know that sounds like a kind of a fallback term. That's just like, it's like creative. Like, creative could mean so many things. Original could mean so many things. But I think this movie is so many things that I think that's one of the only words I feel like covers it correctly. Like, it's really, I can honestly say I've never seen a movie like this movie. Mm-hmm. Story wise too. Like, it's an adventure movie, but again, it's not really in the way that you expect an adventure movie to go. But I think the autobiographical elements, like, one of the things that stood out to me. So again, they live in a small house by the train tracks. Like the train tracks pass by their front window or their back window, and the dog sits in the window and barks at the train as it comes by. And there's a scene where he does it several times.
And there's like several scenes. If he's downstairs and hears the train coming, he will book it upstairs so he can like bark at the last train car coming
And that
by.
to me felt too real. Like,
I know.
It felt like something that happened probably in his life. And he was
Yeah.
just like, because he also wrote the movie. So I feel like he probably lived in a place near train tracks and the dog barked when the train passed.
I
Like,
was wanting to ask you, what did you make of, because there's several scenes where the dog falls asleep, and every time he falls asleep, he has the same dream where he's riding on top of a train car. I didn't really know what to make of that.
I think he rides on the top of that first aid truck. And so I thought it was just like a nice visual connection of just like a nice transition. And there are several scenes. There's several dream sequences where he's...
I wonder if it was like a dog. You know, we have our dreams. Like, you know, you got like the filmmaking dream. You got the bicyclist dream. And I wonder if, like, from a dog's perspective, it's a dream on a much more simple level.
Yeah.
And he wanted to be on top of the train riding.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
don't know, though.
I could totally buy into that. The next thing I really want to dig into is the commentary on this movie. This movie, I thought, was not in a heavy-handed way. I never felt like it was blatant or ham-fisted, but it is like very apparent and very strongly opinionated on its commentary about Western culture, like American culture, really.
Yeah.
Because Belleville, like you said, it's like...
I thought we said Vancouver. No, it's so Belleville, this town that they follow Champion. After Champion gets kidnapped, they buy a little rowboat and like follow this ship to this city called Belleville. When I first watched it, I thought it was supposed to be the U.S., but I was looking it up. It's supposed to be a mixture of Paris, Quebec, and New York City.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Dude, to me it screamed...
Which the guitarist is from Quebec, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It screamed America through and through. Like, and I'm sure that's because of how I
think it's
live
just
in
I was
America.
picking up all the American.
But,
There's probably
like-
Quebec stuff in there that just went right over my head.
I think this movie is about... It's about the story it's telling. It's about dreams and how they affect you and how they affect the people that you're around. And I think you're probably right on the money that it's about animation. But it's also trying to say, like, this culture, which it really screamed American culture to me, is all about, like, gluttony. And
Gluttony and money. And
we live in excess. We
at
want
one
power.
point, there's a scene where they're trying to cross the street, and the red light, green light for whether or not the pedestrians can walk. So, like, pretty much all the characters in this city are, like, very large people.
Morbidly obese.
Yeah, incredibly
Not
obese
just,
people.
like, big, but, like
grossly just,
it
like...
reminded me a little bit of Wall-E.
Yes,
know how everybody's,
that
like,
same
stuck
kind
in
of
the
vibe,
chairs.
yeah. And the street lights saying whether or not a pedestrian can walk or not are fat people.
Yes.
Like
Did you notice the Statue of Liberty was a fat person?
No, I did not.
Did you
That's
notice
very
that the Triplets of Belleville, when they go back to their apartment, the awards they won were fat people?
Really?
Yes. Like,
and then there's a picture where they make it like there's a picture of somebody standing in front of the Hollywood sign, and it's called Holly Food. Did you see
yes,
that?
it was the little mousy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he exactly. I think, it's not subtle. It's about just, like, everything we do is taken with excess.
Yes.
And, like, the main antagonist, the mob boss, is literally paralleled with a cheeseburger. Did you catch that match cut? Like, I think it was a fade, but it wasn't a cut. But, like, it shows his head, and then it fades into the same shape, but it's the cheeseburger restaurant.
Is it when oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was another good piece of commentary, because, in that one, the woman's name was Fanny, what was it? Fanny something. I don't know. I feel like it was a pun about being fat, because she was just like a huge... But she comes up and is like, 2 cheeseburgers. Grandma opens up her wallet, and a little moth flies out to show how empty it is, and they kick him out, and then she's just like, no money, no cheeseburgers. And, like, that's how quick a lot of the dialogue is. Like, that's the first dialogue you've heard in, like, 15 minutes. It's like, cheeseburger. And it's actually in English, that one.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
But, and, like, just another commentary on American culture. Like, we're not very charitable. We have no interest in being charitable. No money, no cheeseburgers, as they say.
As they do say. Also, they travel across the ocean to Belleville, and there's the establishing shots of Belleville when Champion is getting taken in, and Grandma gets off her little paddle boat. Which, by the way, there's this cute little scene where she rents a paddle boat for, like, the last kind of money she has left for, like, I think it was like 20 minutes or an hour or something, and the guy's just, like, standing there, and she's just like keeps going to the point where it's very obvious that she's not coming back.
And he keeps like checking his watch every now and then. Yeah.
But so when they get to Belleville and we see the Statue of Liberty, the big kind of fat Statue of Liberty, and then it shows like kind of an establishing shot of the city. And buildings, you literally can't see the ground. Like, buildings are stacked on top of each other for just miles. And then it shows, like, the people, and there's just people everywhere. It's like the streets are covered in people. You can't see the ground. And visually, I think that speaks to just, like, the way he views American culture, which is just, like, everything. There's too many people. There's too many buildings. There's too much food. There's too much hunger for power.
And I feel like also with the Boy Scout scene. So there's a scene where the grandma and the dog are trying to cross the road. There's no dialogue in this scene again. And this Boy Scout comes up and tries to grab her arm and help her walk across. And the grandma is a very strong-willed person, so she like rips her arm away and hits him in the head with her cane. And he like looks at her with a confused look, and then puts like the Boy Scout like 3-finger symbol up just to show like, no, I'm a Boy Scout, like I'm trying to help you cross the street. Yeah. And then so he tries to help her cross the street again, and she rips her arm away and like keeps hitting him. And so there's like a long sequence where he keeps trying to help her across the street, she keeps hitting him, and he keeps putting like the Boy Scout symbol up, just being like, I don't know if this woman realizes, but like I'm a Boy Scout, I'm trying to help this old lady across the street. And I felt like that was supposed to be commentary on like...
Disclaimer, if you're hearing a heavy bass tone right now, our neighbors...
Oh my goodness.
...are bumping some major tunes.
He's a cool guy.
We love him.
He sits in this old car with the loudest engine I've ever heard and just sits in front of our house. We have this weird house where there's like a parking lot in front of our house.
It's the pool house, baby.
Yeah, it's the pool. It's the pool house.
We live in the pea house.
It's great. There's no pool around, sadly.
We don't have a pool.
But it used to be a pool house back in like the 70s. But regardless, one of our neighbors, we let him park in front of our house. And he will sit there and just bump the worst subs I've ever heard in my life, probably. I'm curious as to if it sounds good on the inside of the car. Because on the outside, it's just like...
You can hear it right now as we're talking about it. Listen, I think we just need to...
coming through pretty well?
It's decent. It's not overwhelming, but it's decent. It's definitely there.
I think he's, listen, Lollipop
guys.
Lil Wayne?
Listen, guys, we're just like you, all right? We're people. We're real people with real lives. Boy Scout.
Yeah, so back to... Essentially, they keep doing this, and then like the grandma ends up getting tired of it, so she takes off while the fat person pedestrian light is on red. So all these cars are coming. So the Boy Scout like tries to follow her out into the road, and he's like putting his hand out, getting all these cars to stop, and then she crosses the road, takes off, and he's like standing there looking at like this traffic jam that she has caused, and then he starts putting up the Boy Scout sign again, just to be like, oh, don't worry guys, I'm a Boy Scout, and like takes it's a very funny scene. But I think what they're trying to comment on there, because it's shortly after the cheeseburger scene. Like in America, we just have this stupid backward moral code where something like, oh, this old lady has no money and she clearly needs something to eat. And we're like, nope, get out of here. But then something dumb and arbitrary, like helping an old person across the street, is just like, oh, look at those Boy Scouts. Like, that's the American way, baby. Like,
symbolically, it's a good gesture.
Yes.
But really on a deeper level.
Nothing.
Yeah. She can walk across the street.
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah.
She's got a fat dog to soften the blow if she falls over.
Dude, one thing I don't know, and I don't mean to reach here, and I don't mean to put words in the director's mouth, but it really struck me is most of these people are white characters. They're white characters. There's, of what I picked up on, there's two diverse characters.
Which characters?
There's the dancer at the beginning, the topless dancer.
Yeah.
And there's the man who is shaving the little ratty henchman's neck on the street. He's shaving his face. And I think it is kind of telling that both of those characters are very subservient. Like in the opening sequence, the triplets are really the stars of the show, but the dancer comes out
like a side act.
She's like there to like dance, and she's topless, so she's there for a reason to like serve the purpose of the show. And then the person on the street shaving the henchman is supposed to, I took it as supposed to be an Asian person of Asian descent.
Some type.
And he is shaving this guy's face. But neither of those people were fat.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I didn't think about that at all.
That's the thing that stood out to me about it and made me notice it, is that the guy shaving his face was the only person in that whole scene that wasn't obese. He was actually kind of skinny, which again, I think plays to a role of like in America, we kind of sanction these types of people, anybody outside of this archetype of like a powerful quote unquote person.
Yeah.
As they are to serve the purpose, and they also don't get really fed.
Yeah, which is
as
interesting.
much as us.
Because, of course, you know, there are a lot of problems clearly today in this country, which is why we have the like political climate that we have going on right now. But it's interesting because it's a pretty progressive idea, because this movie was made in 2003.
Yes.
This movie was made a couple years after like 9/11. Like that's how long ago this was made, and he was, if that's what he was trying to get at, that's a very interesting thing for him to be touching on so long ago, especially being French, and like he's making that kind of commentary on American
exactly
culture, you know?
Yes, and it's 100% not the vocal point they're trying to make in the movie.
Yeah, they're not trying to throw it out there, but it's
to me it felt purposeful.
Yeah,
it felt purposeful that he said that.
To wrap up like the writing portion, the only thing I had to say, I feel like I've said all the heavy hitter parts that I noticed throughout the movie, but there was also a lot of like setups that I thought was very interesting, such as the grandma having this uneven leg, and like we were talking about, that becomes a huge point at the end. She trips the last car, like literally trips it, like she sticks her foot out and the tire hits it and the car flips, which shows you this like separation from reality that they have. When we were talking about like the car chase scene, when they're on this platform with the bikes and they're running away from all these cars, they have no way of turning it because they're just on this platform. Like the handles don't turn it. So the way they turn it is the triplets keep reaching their arms out and grabbing onto light posts, and that will spin them around. And then we talked about the dog barking at the trains the entire time. At the very end of the movie, there's a scene where, and it's when they think that they've almost, this is what leads to them thinking they've got away, but then the last car shows up, so the grandma reaches her foot out to trip them. They think they've got away because they try to cross these train tracks, but this platform is moving very slowly, so there's a train coming. Yeah. And they get over the train tracks just in the nick of time, and it cuts off the car behind them, and the dog is like barking at the train. Yes. There was, and also with one of the triplets using the grenades to blow up the river. Something as small and then that comes in later in the climax where she's always got one of these grenades like tucked into her sock, and she uses that. There were just so many small setups where it seemed initially just like, what the heck is this random thing that they keep coming back to? And then they just paid off, and like, you know, and I'm not saying like, oh, that was genius to have the dog barking at the end. But when I was watching it, it was just such a beautiful little, like, what a full circle, wonderful moment
I think me and you both agree on this because obviously we feel the way we do about screenwriting. I think a good screenplay is like a good joke. There's like a setup and a payoff. You know, things happen because they're going to affect later on in the movie. And yeah, like even something as small, like I said, like I don't think the dog necessarily barking at the train is a plot device, but it wasn't a fun little setup for them to pay it off at the very end. Yeah. Like you're right. There are several, this is a really well written script too. Like, especially the fact that there's so little dialogue. I'm sure the script had to be so heavy on action, you know what I mean? Obviously, because it's all animation. It's all them, you know, the characters doing things. Yeah. Also, I wanted to, before we forget and we move on to the characters, everybody in Belleville, I almost said America, is packing guns. You remember at the end, like they're at the gambling station, which they're doing some seedy stuff, and they're supposed.
I took that as supposed to be more of like the mafia. I didn't really take that as everyone in America. Well. It's actually interesting. Maybe. I didn't really think about that.
I just thought it was hilarious that literally everybody pulled out a gun. Like there was hundreds of people there. Yeah. And the grandma like snuck out. Or no, the triplets. Somebody came out.
The triplets came out because they beat that guy. But I think that was because remember they had to like get in there. Like those were all mafia members.
Yeah, for sure. In the terms of the script, I just thought it was again just excess of just like everybody's got guns, everybody's fat. Like there's a lot of just these like things. Again, it's not really subtle in its commentary, but I think it's handled beautifully. Dude, no, this actually reminded me of Dr. Mabuse, ironically. Because like
Gone Girl. Just kidding.
every
movie is just like this reminded me of Triplets of Belleville, Gone Girl, Dr. Mabuse. It's The Godfather Part 2 or whatever number 1 is, and you're just like, all right, I got a long list of movies that this reminded me of. Let me just start from the top.
Strap in, folks. It reminded me of Dr. Mabuse in the sense that
it's great.
The cat. It was good.
In the sense that it was a good movie. Well, that's all this
Thanks
time,
for listening
folks.
to the 500 Top Podcast. Like it's full of really colorful characters. Everyone looks kind of gross, but they're very distinct. Like all of the mobsters kind of look the same. All of the fat people kind of look the same. But everybody who's a distinct character looks distinct, and everybody has this. You don't get them confused. You know what I mean? Even the triplets. I don't know each of them by name, but like all three of them looked different.
Yeah.
There was a definite difference in them.
Yeah. Definitely.
Dude. That sounded like I was like, dude, don't make fun
Dude, will you just let me say this point, please?
I don't know what you felt. This was definitely the grandma's movie.
I almost felt like it was the dog's movie, to be completely
What?
honest. I really feel like the dog is the protagonist of this film.
Holy smokes. Please, please, I'm begging you, defend your case. I want to hear it.
Just a lot of the movie is from the dog's point of view, and like even if we come upon a scene where we see what the grandma's up to, it starts on the dog. Like we go from the dog, like so. Whenever we flash to the future, it starts on the dog barking at the train, and then it cuts to them like training, and so they're riding around the town. Then it cuts back to the dog going down the stairs, and he's waiting for them at the door. And then in the scene when they're eating, like the dog. That's why I felt so sad, because like there's all this stuff that they're doing, so we're watching them, but like we keep cutting back to like the dog just observing everything that's going on. And then when he has his first dream where he's riding on top of the train, I don't know if it match cuts, but it kind of match cuts to him riding on top of the truck. Like a lot of the scenes just start out with like, what's going on with the dog? Where is he? Okay, now what's going on in this setting that he's in? I think the dog.
Again, with the point of this being about animation, that is a great point. I definitely did not pick that up, but I could say I agree with it to an extent. I think, again, you just fall in love with the grandma because she's
She's a
supportive.
lovely woman. What's her name? Madame Souza?
Yeah, that sounds right. She's so supportive of Champion. At the beginning, she's just like trying to figure out what will cheer him up, and she's doing whatever she can. When she finds out he loves bikes, she just goes all in. She buys him a bike. They start training together. She puts herself second in every way to benefit Champion in the movie. Like,
Yes, where Champion's whole life is about bicycling, her
Her
whole
whole
life
life
is about Champion.
yes, isn't that beautiful?
It is.
Isn't that a beautiful little story?
Yeah, it's lovely.
And that's the thing. Like, it's interesting you bring that point up about Champion's story being about animation, because I don't think he's weak in any way. I think Champion almost in the way that if I'm viewing this through the lens of this is Grandma's movie, this is her story, Champion almost is a plot device. Like he is the what's it called? The motivating factor.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? He's what's driving her story.
Oh yes.
So, whereas I don't know if there's a lot of character, he really kind of boils down to, I love biking. It really drives, or should I say rides, her story. Thank you.
Wow.
And they say
We'll
T500.
make t-shirts out of that one.
That's a t-shirt.
Be sure to go grab that merch.
Shopify.com/top500. I think Champion, again, through the lens of this is the grandma's story, really just is there to get her from point A to point B.
Yeah.
You know? And that's not a bad thing at all. I don't think Champion's a weak character.
Mm-hmm.
I think he serves his purpose exactly how he's supposed to. In
Which
my opinion.
also, kind of to what I was saying a minute ago, which is kind of interesting, because I didn't think about this until you just brought that up. Champion is only there to get the grandma from point A to point B, and the grandma is only there to get the dog from point A to
That's a
point B.
great point.
Because like Champion's getting taken all over, the grandma is following Champion, the dog is following the grandma.
Yeah.
Technically,
Yeah.
In a way, I don't know. I just felt like the dog. There was a weird
think that
emphasis
is-
on what was going on with the dog the whole time.
Another great take from John Gautier. Typical. Because really, if you look at it through that lens of this is the dog story, and he's being affected by Grandma, and Grandma's being affected by Champion, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Like, it makes a lot of sense of what his character, because
the dog
I didn't
wants
think
to be a filmmaker.
I didn't. That's the point of the
That's
movie.
what he's trying. No.
But I think if you don't look at it like that, the dog serves kind of a comedic relief. That's like his role in the movie, which
like
again
a
is
moot
not
point.
bad.
Yeah.
But I think it makes actually a lot more sense if we're following the dog story and it's just affected by all these things. But I wanted to talk about, because I think all the characters are great, but the characters I found the most interesting were the triplets. Because, first of all, their entrance is sick.
It is.
When
they just come up singing.
She's by the water. She's got no place to stay. She just starts playing the bike wheel because she's using the tuning fork and it's broken. And she starts playing the drums on the wheel. And you just start seeing like a homeless person start like approaching. And then another homeless person start approaching. And another homeless person start approaching. And in my brain, I was thinking, Grandma's about to get mugged by these homeless people. And they're going to take everything. And then I kind of got a vibe, and I was like, oh, these are homeless ladies, like older homeless ladies.
Yeah, homeless ladies don't hurt anymore.
And one of them started singing, and I thought, there's no way that these are the triplets.
Oh, really? Well, as soon as I saw them, I was like, the triplets have arrived.
No, I did not. I was
hilarious.
just like, this will be the craziest turn if the triplets are these old homeless ladies. Because, again, you established early on, these are like zooty, larger-than-life characters. The Triplets of Belleville, and like they're performing at these like big shows.
Yeah.
And when they showed up, I was just like, this is fully against what I expected, but I'm so happy they did it. And the reason I find them so interesting is because there's a specific way that he portrays America in my eyes, about like everyone is hungry for power, and that's the thing. I think Champion's story is about he's hungry for not power, but for accomplishment. He wants to feel accomplished in his pursuits. Yeah. The mobsters, and kind of, I think visually, it's supposed to be about Americans are hungry for, how can I get the most amount of power? I'm hungry for power. Mm-hmm. The triplets play against that idea because they're not wealthy.
That's a very interesting point.
They're not successful in the sense they were, but they kind of live in this ratty apartment. It seems like there's a lot of shady stuff going on in the apartment. They eat frogs every night. They have to go catch their own dinners.
They're constantly
These ladies are always eating frogs.
It made them look kind of delicious, though.
I did not get
Shout
that.
out PETA.
They
take that out. I shouldn't.
What'd you say?
Shout out PETA.
But no, they've lost all kind of external symbols of wealth or success. Mm-hmm. And to a point, so they take the grandma in, they give her frogs for dinner, and then they go to bed. And they're all sleeping in one bed. They can't afford 3 separate beds. Mm-hmm. And they're watching TV. And I expected, because you see the TV light and you hear them watching something in the room, I thought it was going to be a story of they're like caught up in their glory days. And they're watching the performance from the beginning of the movie. And they're actually watching biking, like a news.
It was like some comedy movie that had to do with. I don't think it was a news thing. It was like a film. It was like a slapstick.
But it was about biking.
There. Yeah,
which is a nice parallel that they're watching stuff about biking, and the champion who loves biking was watching their movie at the beginning.
That is interesting.
Just a funny parallel. So I thought that was maybe where we were going, and I was going to say, okay, this is an interesting take on these. It kind of plays to just like we are so stuck on we have to be successful, we have to make money. And they're like stuck on that idea. But really, they're not. They seem completely content and happy in their little lives.
Yes, they do. And you saying that, I wasn't thinking this before, but that just kind of made me realize, I think the triplets, there is the whole symbolism where I think like Champion trying to be a biker and like all that kind of stuff is like a semblance of his filmmaking. But also, I kind of think the triplets are supposed to be the main example of his filmmaking, because the triplets have no popularity. They are not successful anymore. They were successful back in the day, but if you think about it, back in the day is kind of like more the vibe of his type of filmmaking, when people were making films and it was more art. But then in the future now, it has become all about money. Yeah. And so the mafia character, every time he is somewhere where there's supposed to be something entertaining going on, like when we're talking about them being at the restaurant, there's a performance happening, even when they're in the underground gambling room while everything is going on, the head mafia guy is always sleeping. His eyes are rarely open. And it makes me wonder if he's trying to make the point of like, he's making this gritty movie that, like you were saying at the beginning, it seems like it was made for no one but himself. Yeah. And he must have been having the best time making this movie. And yeah, the triplets, who have no success at all, are crawling into bed together. They're like, they're singing songs with each other. They're eating frogs. They're watching TV and they're laughing, having the greatest time. They have no money. And the guy who's at the top, i.e. Disney, is bored. He has
Wait
so
a
much
second.
money. He's so successful. He's at the top of the game, but he's just here for the money. He doesn't care about any of this. There's no passion in it.
Who's his little henchman? A mouse. The guy's, remember, he's like got mouse ears and he's going,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Mickey Mouse?
Yes. Mickey Mouse. But no, that's very interesting.
And I'm so
the
glad you brought
successful
this.
one's so bored. The
'cause
people
I
with
forgot-
nothing, just having the best little time.
I
fulfilling
forgot
lives.
this, and you just sparked my memory. When they are leaving, they're going across the bridge to escape Belleville, and the mafia boss comes after them. They push the mafia boss off the bridge. He shoots down in a little boat.
Yeah.
He goes in one of the tubes. They shoot out the tube, and they shoot across the buildings like Magic Kingdom.
And fireworks go off
Yes.
in that scene.
This is a
didn't
movie
even
about
think
Disney.
about that. Oh my gosh, that is so interesting. Yeah,
And
I didn't
it's
even realize
anti.
that.
I said at the beginning, it's anti-Disney.
Yes.
It is actually
Yes,
anti-Disney.
it is. There's no way that's all coincidence. That's funny that like we both kind of got that vibe, but then through like bouncing ideas off, we've now realized like this movie is making strong commentary against Disney, and in a beautiful, creative, perfect way. It's incredible.
It really is. I do more than I like to, and I'm gonna try not to. So I'm not gonna say like a declarative statement of like this is yada yada. But I absolutely love this movie. I love it so much.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
And it pains me to say, Disney sometimes makes good stuff too.
they do.
But do they care? No.
Are they eating frogs?
Are they sleeping while are the top executives at Disney sleeping during the premieres? Yes. They are.
They
Maybe.
are.
I don't know. I've never met anyone. But
Dude,
Sylvain certainly seems to think so. What?
If biking is supposed to be the holy moly, this just opens a whole new point of conversation. If biking is supposed to be the parallel of animation, then he's over in France struggling to animate. They shipped him over and basically made him do slave labor for them to make, and they're projecting the movies for the audience.
Oh my goodness.
And
That-
they're this is blowing
This
my
movie
mind.
is so good.
It's so
Oh my
great.
goodness.
You guys, if you haven't checked it out, please do check it
Yeah,
out.
it's not the commitment of last week. It's not a 4-hour movie. It's an hour and 20 minutes.
It's a short watch.
It's just one of the weirdest, most creative. Like, yeah, but there's no better way to put it than what you put it at the
It's-
beginning.
it's
he
one-
made the movie for himself.
Yes,
and
he-
it's like
he
it's
really
like a.
did.
If you know Charlie Kaufman wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Being John Malkovich. He recently came out with a movie called I Think You Should Leave. And it's almost got that vibe to me because when you're watching a movie that Charlie Kaufman, even if he didn't direct it, when you're watching a movie he has written, he is not trying to appeal to a wide audience.
he
He's
really
like, what's this issue that I'm dealing? He like dives as deep as he can into himself. And a lot of times, I feel like you'll see throughout films, the more that a filmmaker makes a movie personal, they're not just like, how can I appeal this to everybody? They're like, nope, this movie is about me and for me. It seems to have a wider reach in a lot of senses.
People like to understand somebody on a grand scale. You like to feel like you know someone. Again, sorry if it's annoying, but David Lynch, like he makes movies and he makes things that he wants to see, and they're usually very therapeutic.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because a lot of times if you're trying to make a movie that has a wide reach, which I'm not dogging on this guy at all. I love him and I think he's fantastic. But like Jon Favreau is known for making like, and the reason that I'm saying I'm not dogging on him is because he can kind of do both. He has a movie called Chef, which is an independent movie. Yeah, it's a very small
Watch
movie.
Chef.
It's beautiful.
It's
Watch
great.
Chef. It's
Watch
on
Chef.
Netflix as of when we're recording this. I don't know if you're getting in 10 years down
10
the
years
road.
in the future,
when we're
it may
getting
not
close
be.
to The Godfather. But
That's right.
regardless, Jon
But
Favreau.
I'm sure you can find it on the internet or your
Yeah, you can find it
robot server can
Yeah.
project it on the
Everybody's
wall
got
for
fire
you.
stick, jailbroken fire sticks in the future.
That's the real future. We want.
But regardless, Jon Favreau, he's an incredible writer, incredible director, and a really great actor too. But he also is known, has a great skill with making big blockbuster movies that appeal to wide audiences. And it can be said by some people that like some of his bigger blockbusters, they don't have like a crazy amount of depth, but a lot of times I think that's the thing. And like he's one of the people that can make these big blockbusters, but they're still fantastic. And that's why I say I don't want to dog on him. But a lot of times when you're making those big blockbusters, you got to think of how can this appeal to the majority of people. And I think when doing that, you fall into a lot of cliches because you think of like, what is something that everybody deals with and like something that like, bothers everyone. And so you come up with this and that and this. So when everybody sees it, they're just like, this is a known thing that everybody deals with, which is how the writer got there in the first place. It's like, what's something that everybody deals with? And everybody knows that everyone deals with this. But when you make a movie that you're like, I don't care what everybody deals with. Here's what I am dealing with. Here are my fears. Here are my anxieties. And you dive into yourself. It takes this beautiful turn because you get into a situation where somebody watching it sees something happen in the film and it like changes them because they're just like, I had no idea that someone else also felt that way.
100%.
And it speaks to them way more than those wide-reaching films. And it's just beautiful. And this is a prime example of one
I
of those
cannot put
films.
it any better. I don't think we could end the episode any better than what you just said. Let's introduce a new segment I like to call the top 500, ranking the movies that we've seen and the one we just watched. We'll workshop the title.
That was a good spitball title, though. I'd say for me, that was my favorite movie so far.
Yeah,
we started at 500 and we're going up, so we might just every movie just be the next favorite movie.
It's true. No, of the three we've watched, I'd put this one at the top for sure.
I agree.
T500. What's the next movie we're checking out?
Next week's movie is Robert Altman's Nashville.
Well, thank you guys very much for listening. Thank you very much to the Arrow Podcast Network.
Thanks to the Arrow
for
Podcast
sponsoring
Network.
us. Check out some of their other podcasts.
Oh, they're so good.
They're so. What's some of your favorite? Would you
I
say,
like.
Jake?
I for one love Back Off Track, an entertainment podcast only on the Arrow Podcast Network.
Thank you to the Arrow Podcast Network.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
having us,
much for
guys.
listening. Please watch this movie if you didn't watch it before listening to the
Form
episode.
your own opinions.
Form your own. You might hate it. I didn't, but you can.
I doubt you'll hate it.
I'd be really surprised if you did, but
Yeah.
be your own person. Don't listen to us.
That's exactly right. Never. That's the point of this show. Never listen to us, except when you're listening to the podcast. Then do listen to us.
Yes, I'm wearing sweatpants right now. I'm not to be taken seriously.
I'm wearing no pants right now.
That is not true. But thank you very much for joining us.
Don't. All right, we'll check you guys next time.
You have reached the end of the Top 500 with Jonathan and Jake.